Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Fountain pen first impressions day today. My first impressions of this new to me model, a Kaigelu 222. Now, I've got some Kaigelu 316s and I really like them. So I thought, well, yeah, this is a new model. Let's give this a try. It's got an unusual pattern. It's like maybe a ready terracotta brown. And it's got some black bits in there. I haven't 100% decided on the ink, but now that I'm seeing this, I might try something like Robert Oster Terracotta. I think that might go quite well in this. It's a metal feeling pen. The cap screws off. Got a little tiny nib though. Be interesting to see how it works because the Kaigelu 316, they're number 6 size nibs. This, it looks more like a number 5 size to me. It's cartridge converter. Yep, and we've got the converter in there. So join me now down on the mat. We'll take a closer look at the pen. I'll pick an ink, fill it up, do a writing sample, and then I'll give you my first impressions of this pen. Welcome down to the mat. Here's the pen. This is the Kaigelu 222. Originally, I did order this in the green and black colour, but unfortunately they didn't have any in stock, so I ended up with this colour. It's nice though, it's an unusual colour. It's not a colour I've got a lot of pens in, so I thought, yeah, that's quite nice. Let's take a walk through the body. So, looking at the pen, the top we've got a dome, quite reminiscent of a Pilot Metropolitan, and we'll look at it compared to that later on. Got a very steep taper till we come to where we've got the clip mechanism there. So you can see that goes into the body. It's not on a separate ring. That means the whole cap is one piece of metal. Looks like there might be a lever, but that's very, very stiff, not moving at all. The stiffness of this, yeah, that whole clip is really stiff. Hopefully, as I use it, it might get a little bit better. Clip, gold coloured. Got a little bit of a pattern on it, so it just adds a little bit of interest. Then it does narrow out as we get towards the bottom of the clip. Back to the cap, got a little bit more tapering, and then we go straight all the way down to the bottom. Now we've got a really thin gold coloured band there on the bottom. If we go around, I'm just going to turn it around so we've got the right way around. Here we've got the kangaroo motif. 222, the pen model. Then under that we've got Kaigelu. That's all engraved on the cap. And the way it's engraved, I think it's in like a goldy colour, but it's hard to see. It doesn't detract from the actual pen body itself. From the cap, we've got a noticeable drop down to another gold coloured band. Then the body seems to be the same width until it gets nearly 3/4 of the way down. Then it thins out, and again we've got a domed end. Altogether, quite a simple looking pen. As I've already said, I like this patterning. It just looks different, doesn't it? Let's take the cap off. The cap, well, it doesn't pull off, it's a twist off. So it comes off in 1, 1.5, 2, about 2 1/4 turns to take the cap off. Not too bad. Let's take the cap off. Reveals the section which is in the same material as the rest of the pen. I like how they carry that through. A lot of pens where they just have the plain black section, to me, takes away a little bit, but having this carry through, I think that's a really nice touch. And then that reveals the nib. Fairly small nib, I would say number 5 size nib. My other Kaigelus, they're all number 6s, so it'll be interesting how this goes. Fairly simple. I'm just going to pick up the pen and look at it through my loupe. Yeah, very, very simple. So we've got the kangaroo on there. We've got EF. This is an extra fine nib. Now, I did order a fine, but they sent an extra fine. I'm not going to quibble about that. Then underneath that, we've got the word Kaigelu. Very, very simple. But at the end of the day, it's not what it looks like, it's how it writes. And we'll see that in a few seconds. Let me just pop the cap back on. nice pen, nice looking pen. Let's do some size comparisons. I brought in my standard size comparison, so we've got a Pilot Metropolitan, we've got the Lamy Safari. All three pens are very similar length, and you can see how the shape of the Metropolitan and of this Kaigelu 222, very similar. I'll just say it's a bit more pointed on the 222. That's going to get a bit repetitive, isn't it, all these twos? Let's take the caps off and look at them unposted. Unposted, what I've tried to do is line the tip of the nibs up. Again, we've got the Metropolitan and the 222, very similar size, very similar width. Maybe one slight difference is with the section, different section shape. I would say the 222, that's slightly wider, and I like the lack of the lip. The lip on this Pilot, when I use it, actually feels like it's digging in my finger, so that's going to be nice to see how that goes. And then the Safari, we're talking maybe 5mm longer, a little bit longer, not that much though. Nib-wise, I think it's a number 5. Matches quite well with the number 5 Pilot nib there. Let's have a look at these posted. Posted, to be honest, again, I think the Metropolitan and the 222 still very similar, still the same length. You can maybe say the 222 is maybe 2 or 3mm longer, but not a lot. And again, the Safari, doesn't that look like the giant of the bunch? I'm going to step away from the desk. I'm going to give the pen a good clean out. When I come back, we'll pop some ink in it. We'll do a writing sample. Then I'll give you my first impressions. And I'm back. So I've given the pen a clean out. Now, I don't do too much to clean it out. I just use some cold water. With the bulb syringe, I flush through the nib. I do then dry it off with a little bit of paper towel, only dabbing it there, I don't press hard. And then, like here where we've got a converter, what I do is actually use my syringe so that I can get right the way down, and I flush 2 or 3 syringefuls through. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I feel it makes a difference, and that's what's important. Now, I know some people, they do use soapy water. I do debate about that sometimes because I think, well, that'll give it a better clean because the soap would help to dissolve any grease. But so far I've been lucky. So, as we see, it's a converter, Kaigelu branded. Again, we've got the kangaroo. So let's pop this together. Put these over to one side. I'll fetch in my ink holder, Quickie Koala today. The ink I've decided to use is Robert Oster, and it's Terracotta. I thought that might actually go quite nice. It's a nice orangey brown ink, and I thought it would go well with the pen, which looks quite orangey brown. So let's make sure the converter's right the way down, properly fitted. I'm going to try and angle the bottle so you can hopefully see the ink coming up. I think it's too far in the bottle for you to see that. There we go, there's the ink. This is a bottle, you can see it's quite popular with me because there's quite a lot gone. Just going to clean this off, and then when we come back, we'll get on with the writing sample. The ink's been put away nice and safe where I can't knock it over. That's one of my worries. It hasn't happened yet, but I can just see me knocking over a bottle full of ink one of these days. That's why I use that holder, just to give it a little bit more stability. Here's the notebook of testing. This is Oxford Optic paper. Really nice fountain pen friendly paper. It's an A5 notebook, and I try to use this same notebook for all my first impressions. Let's do some writing. So here we've got the pen. And unposted, it's nice to hold. Let's see how well it writes though. So we've got here a Kaigelu 222. You can tell this nib is extra fine. It cost 18 Australian dollars. The ink, Robert Oster Terracotta. Not sure about this at the moment. I'm just going to use my rough notebook. I'm just going to scribble off a little bit with the ink. The ink here was looking a little bit watery to me. That's why I've just taken my rough pad and I've just scribbled off a bit. Hopefully that will help. Drying times, Let's go for media. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Almost dry there. 1 minute. Yeah, after a minute, we'd expect that's nice and dry. So at the moment, this looks like it's a potential pen that could be used for note taking, because we're getting a nice, fairly quick dry time, so I don't have to worry about leaving it too long between pages. Just a bit concerned about how fine that extra fine line is. Let's have a look though, see if it's any better after I've scribbled off on that rough paper. We'll move the mic down to the page, and you can hear the pen write. That's a lot more pleasant than I was expecting. We've certainly got rid of the watery look that we were getting up here at the start. That must have been still a little bit of water maybe on the nib. Although I'd have thought by dipping the pen in and filling it that way, it would have got rid of any water, but never mind. We've learnt a lesson there, or certainly I have. You know, here, yeah, it's a nice line. I'm seeing some nice shading as well. So hopefully that'll be nice when I get to actually use this in anger. Let's look for any line variation. I'm not expecting any. So there's no pressure. There's with pressure. Very stiff nib. It's more ink that's going down, I think, rather than a wider line. So no pressure, with pressure. None and with, none, with. Yeah, to me it looks like it's just more ink rather than a wider line. Final test, flow. Yeah, it keeps up quite nicely, doesn't it? So what are my first impressions of this pen? I'm a little bit disappointed with the width of the line. I do not like extra fine nibs at the best of time. So I would have preferred, a fine medium would have been best, but obviously I could only get the extra fine. I'm actually not upset about that though, because certainly after that first couple of words there, when we got down to the sentence, it looks quite nice. I'm going to have to use darker inks in this, maybe even this terracotta. I think this terracotta is actually quite a nice match. This could already be a perfect pairing that I've found, and I might just keep terracotta in there. I did think about some of the other oranges I've got and trying them in this pen, but after seeing it right, they are way too pale for this. Very nice. Scratchy. Not overly so though. It's a nice scratchiness, it's a nice feedback. I'm not going to say it's pencil-like, but it's getting on towards that. I actually quite like it. I like pens with feedback. Not too much, but I like to be able to feel, hear, and have that tactile niche when I'm writing. And this pen, certainly in this tests we've done here, has given that to me. I like the fact it's a screw cap. A lot of pens where they're pull-offs, I always worry I'm going to accidentally pull the cap off and end up with ink going everywhere. I like the section. The section feels quite nice. Yes, we haven't written a lot, but it's not digging into my fingers like the Metropolitan does. It's a nice length unposted. Let me just move my hand up a little bit, then you can see it unposted. It will post. Yeah, seems fairly secure when it's posted. Doesn't actually feel too much heavier or back-weighted. So you could get away with it posted. I personally won't. I think unposted, just about right. I actually like the fact we've got the gold-coloured nib and trim as well. I think that goes well with this orange and black. All in all, not a bad pen. I'm actually glad they didn't have the green version, because I think this orange, certainly with terracotta here, I think that's really nice. It looks really well. I'm actually quite excited to start using this, and I can't wait to do some long-term note-taking with it, just to see how it manages, how it handles, and maybe with an extra fine nib, I might get a few extra pages when I'm writing. So it's my first impressions of the Kaigelu 222 with Robert Oster Terracotta. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on the Kaigelu 222? Have you got one? Have you been able to get it in a different nib width? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to get your input and start a conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.